And I really appreciate what you did on the stablecoins bill. And I think, we got a lot of broad bipartisan support. At least many of us, I think all of my Republicans and many of my Democratic friends agree we want these products built in America. Crypto's here to stay, and we need clear rules of the road. And stablecoin was simple compared to market structure. But you have one of the things that we see in crypto, and we are working our tail off. You can please, I think the chairman and I've spent, and Cynthia and others have spent more time on this than, anyway, I'm going to use up my time. But there are a lot of issues around national security that you have unique perspectives on with FinCEN, with the Secret Service. We sure as heck don't want to take away from prosecutors some of the tools they have to go against bad guys. We've got to have some area to close down some of the gaps in DeFi. And again, there's bipartisan agreement on this, but boy, we need, I think we're starting to get some of the technical assistance. But if you can just make clear that this is a real problem, and we'll deal with yields and rewards, we'll deal with a host of other issues, but these national security issues around DeFi are real, and we need to not create a set of rules that leaves huge exemptions and candidly takes away some of the prosecutorial powers that exist today.
Senator, I look forward to working with you on that. We've had problems, and historically there's problems when the technology gets ahead of the legislation. So if we can work with you on the legislation it's for both OFAC and FinCEN. We
love your technical assistance, and I think, Mr. Chairman and Senator Olmos, that you will be invited to our next round robin on that, and that may be later today or tomorrow or Monday. So
good. And if you could convince some of there seems to be a nihilist group in the industry who would prefer no regulation over this very good regulation.
Amen, brother. So weigh in.
I do.
Weigh in.
Early and often, Senator.
Weigh in. One last comment. I know my time is up. No, last comment. Hey,
Senator.
Agentic AI, we got to come back and talk about. Agentic AI, huge possibilities with AI, but we've got to be careful about that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Unbelievable. Okay. Senator Lummis.
Thank you. I'm going to pursue this line of questioning. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here. You've had a chance to travel the world since you took the oath of office. Is China trying to use digital assets and blockchain to build an alternative to American financial leadership?
We don't know that for sure. There are lots of rumors of Chinese digital assets that may be backed by something other than the RMB, perhaps gold-based. We haven't seen that. They have a very large sandbox in Hong Kong, and HKMA is actively traveling the world looking at different mechanisms. So I would not be surprised.
Based on what you know now, what is your opinion about the importance of having clear rules of the road, market structure legislation in the United States?
Look, I think that it's impossible to proceed without it. We have to get this Clarity Act across the finish line, and any market participants who don't want it should move to El Salvador.
So, as a industry, what is the benefit to having this industry embedded in the U.S. economy?
Well, again, as I said, that there seem to be people who want to live in the U.S. but not have rules for this important industry, and we've got to bring safe, sound, and smart practices and the oversight of the U.S. government, but also allow for the freedom that is crypto. And I think it's a balance that is being worked out. It was worked out in the Genius Act, and I'm confident with leadership of people on both sides of the aisle that we can get clarity across the line this year.
Can you see a day when conventional banks and digital asset banking are offering the same types of products, giving each an advantage to offering a broader array of financial products to the American consumer?
I think that can happen over time, and we've actually been working with small and community banks to discuss how they can be part of the digital asset revolution also.
Among the things that have challenged us in these last months is concern by community banks and big banks that the stablecoin bill, the Genius Act, and market structure could cause a bleeding of deposits from small banks. What's your reaction to that concern?
Look, I've been a champion of these small banks, and deposit volatility is very undesirable because it is the stability of those deposits that allows them to lend into their communities, ag, small business, real estate, and we will continue to work to make sure that there is no deposit volatility associated with this.
Well, as an ag borrower, I commend you on that because I have borrowed from community banks on our ag operation for decades, and we're dependent on our community banking relationships in rural America to help sustain us and grow our businesses. So I very much appreciate that. I want to switch to digital asset taxation for just a minute. So among the things that I'm exploring, and the Senate Finance Committee has a package of bills that looks really good to me on digital asset taxation. But one of them that's kind of vexing that I could use some guidance on is the issue of de minimis with regard to especially Bitcoin and other digital assets that might be used as a means of exchange. So the issue is, will it be a capital gain or will it be exempt from capital gains when it's used as a means of exchange to purchase things? And if it's going to be subject to a capital gain, how do you calculate what the capital gain is? If somebody has a blended portfolio of Bitcoin, some of which were purchased when it was $300, some of which were purchased today at $75,000, and some of which were purchased a year ago at over $100,000. How do you calculate the capital gain? Do you have some thoughts about that, or who I could consult with in your shop?
It's a very complicated subject. We'd be very happy to have our Office of Tax Policy work with your team.
I'll be over. Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
We look forward to seeing you.
Senator Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Secretary, would you consider food and ag to be an important part of the U.S. economy?
Extremely.
Thank you. I agree with you on that. The U.S. food and ag sector is a massive economic force contributing over $9.5 trillion, supporting over 24 million jobs. So, Mr. Chair, what I'd like to do is to submit a letter for the record. This is a letter sent on Tuesday to the ag committees in both the House and the Senate. It's signed by 27 former and current leaders in the ag sector from all across the country. It's a very bipartisan letter. Folks from corn, pork, milk, grains, renewable fuels, Farm Bureau, former USDA officials from both Democratic and Republican administrations.
Without objection.
Thank you. Secretary Bessent, as you no doubt know, and as this letter points out, farm bankruptcies have doubled. Barely half of all farms are profitable this year. The U.S. is running an historic agriculture trade deficit, which is a sharp reversal from record surpluses. And farmers are paying higher prices for everything, from health care to farm inputs, grocery, and utility bills. And I want to just read you a piece of this letter, which says, consider the impact of the China trade war on soybeans alone. In 2018, when the China tariffs were initially proposed, whole U.S. soybean exports represented 47% of the world market. Today, it's down to just 24.4%. The letter goes on. So, Secretary Bessent, my question for you is, when can farmers expect this turbulence and this chaos to stop and input prices to begin to stabilize or at least come down for them?
Well, Senator, as you know, input prices spiked under the Biden administration. And
Secretary Bessent, when can we expect?
Again, it's market-based, and as someone who, until the end of last year, was involved in the ag sector, I can tell you it was a record harvest. So it is a problem of abundance, but costs are up. We are working to bring the costs down.
Input costs are up, I believe, Mr. Secretary, in large part because tariffs are driving those costs up. And this is causing massive uncertainty and chaos in the farm sector, which is really hurting many farmers in my state and around the country.
Senator, it was very unfortunate that the Chinese decided to use our grape farmers, soybean farmers, as a pawn in trade negotiations. We have the administration's come out with a $12 billion package, and we have guarantees from the Chinese. They bought $12 billion of soybeans just since October. They are committed to buying, not 12 million tons. They will buy 25 million tons for the next 3 years to stabilize the market.
But what is happening for farmers in Minnesota is this constant on again, off again, tariffs on, tariffs off. It is chaotic, it is confusing, and it is destroying our markets. And so
it has nothing to do with the tariffs on.
Well, I think it has a lot to do, and these farmers, sir, believe that it has a lot to do with Trump tariff policy. I want to just, Mr. Chair, if I may, before I close, I want to link this conversation to some of the challenges that are happening in the ag sector and the larger economic challenges in Minnesota caused by the immigration action that is happening in Minnesota right now. Because the truth is that ag country is heavily impacted by this. This mass deportation plan is having a huge impact on the ability of farmers in my state to be able to get access to labor. And I'm talking about people who are here legally. And I know that my colleagues on both sides of the aisle that represent farm country understand you are hearing this from your farmers and ranchers as well. And it is having huge impacts on dairy and fruit and veggies. It is a major problem, not just in the farm sector, but all across my state, where just in Minneapolis alone, separate from agriculture, small businesses are losing an estimated $20 million a week because of customers just not being able to show up, being afraid, workers being unable to go to work because they're afraid of going out. The bottom line here, colleagues, is that this mass deportation plan was supposed to go after the worst of the worst, but what's really happening is that these poorly trained and aggressive agents are breaking families apart. They are hurting children. They are separating from their families. They are targeting and detaining and arresting people that have done nothing wrong, and that is morally reprehensible. And Mr. Secretary, it is reprehensible that you would blame Alex Preddy, a U.S. citizen, for his own death, shot in the back by these federal agents.
Never blame.
Time's up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to just respectfully respond to my colleague and give you an opportunity to actually respond as well, Mr. Secretary. When I look back over the last 4 years of the Biden administration, it was failed policies for our agriculture industry. Number one, President Biden walked away from the trade deals and the trade gains that President Trump had gotten for our ag industry. Number two, with record high inflation, it hit our farmers worse than anyone. Both the war on energy of the Biden administration, plus the amount and the payment of equipment, plus the fact that input cost had literally been frozen, and the Biden administration failed to pass a farm bill, didn't even try. So here you had record high cost with energy, equipment, labor, inflation, and then you cap what they can make. And I don't remember one person on the other side of the aisle saying, let's move a farm bill. Let's help these people. Let's drive down energy cost. And so I would just like to say, Mr. Secretary, I feel like our ag industry is at the forefront of what we're looking at right now, and I would like to give you an opportunity to respond.
Well, one of the things I will respond to is that in my first meeting with my Chinese counterpart, the vice premier, I asked him, under the phase one purchase agreements, they were actually exceeded in 2020, signed in January 2020. The level of the agreement was exceeded every time President Trump has spoken with Party Chair Xi. He suggested he buys more soybeans, and slowly that tapered off. And we said, why? He said, Biden didn't enforce. Biden didn't enforce the purchase agreements.
Yeah, walked away from it. So speaking of something else we walked away from in the Biden administration was actually being tough on Iran when it came to sanctions. I appreciate the maximum pressure strategy that President Trump has gone back to. I'd like to ask you, what more can we be doing as we see us place pressure on the Ayatollah, who is no friend of the United States of America, and as we see what he is doing to the citizens of his own country and the streets, what more can we be doing to make sure that we are placing the pressure that we need to on the greatest state sponsor of terrorism, and that is the Ayatollah and Iran?
Well, what we can do at Treasury, and what we have done is created a dollar shortage in the country. At a speech at the Economic Club of New York in March, I outlined the strategy. It came to a swift and I would say grand culmination in December when one of the largest banks in Iran went under. There was a run on the bank. The central bank had to print money. The Iranian currency went into free fall. Inflation exploded, and hence we have seen the Iranian people out on the street. We will continue monitoring all the partners, all the Iranian partners. The good news, Senator, is that we have seen, and we can see it with our FinCEN, we have seen the Iranian leadership wiring money out of the country like crazy. So the rats are leaving the ship, and that is a good sign that they know the end may be near.
I want to switch quickly to regulatory tailoring. It is obviously my belief that proper tailoring actually ensures that supervision is grounded in economic reality rather than subject ideology. Can you speak a little bit to the work that you and EFSOC agencies are doing to more properly calibrate our regulatory framework, whether it's capital rules or stress testing or even adjusting to outdated thresholds?
Again, we are looking at all the thresholds. One thing that happened, too big to fail became too small to succeed, as Senator Hagerty said, and we don't want to see more of our small banks go under. What we want to see before the great financial crisis and this excessive regulation on the system was we would see about 50 new banks formed every year, by definitionally small banks, and we need to get back to doing that. We need to get back to small banks. I was talking to a community banker, 17 employees, 3 compliance people.
And last, I've got 30 seconds, but there have been claims made by the other side of the aisle, even tweets put out. I can provide that for you if you need that. But some pretty serious accusations, and saying, we have a tweet actually from the ranking member that says, and I want you to be able to correct the record if this is true, but essentially claims that the IRS has gutted enforcement and dismantled the DOJ or forced tax fraud investigators to actually stop doing their job. Does that have any legitimacy at all? Because I think that gives us all concern if that's the truth.
Complete sophistry. We've identified $10 billion in tax crimes, up 15% from 2024, $4.5 billion tax fraud, up 110% from last year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Warnock.
Thank you, Chair Scott, and welcome, Secretary Bessent. President Trump promised that his administration would usher in a, quote, golden age of American manufacturing. In September 2024, at a rally in my home state of Georgia, Donald Trump said, quote, we're going to have a manufacturing boom. Secretary Bessent, we're now more than 1 year into the Trump administration. Yes or no? Has there been a manufacturing boom in the United States?
There are the beginnings of a manufacturing boom. We have intentions, factory groundbreakings, sir.
So your answer to that is yes, there's been a manufacturing boom?
That we are at the beginning of a manufacturing boom.
Okay, you and I could agree to disagree, but more importantly, manufacturers are telling us something different. Manufacturers are struggling because of the president's policies, and that's what they keep telling us, and the facts keep telling us. In fact, just this past Monday, the Wall Street Journal published this article entitled, U.S. Manufacturing is in Retreat, and Trump's tariffs aren't helping. I request consent to enter this article into the hearing record. Mr. Chairman?
Without objection.
Secretary Bessent, do you know how many manufacturing jobs the United States has lost since Liberation Day in April 2025, when the president first announced his tariffs?
Yes, Senator, because you were out of the room, but it was already brought up.
We do many things, sir. I don't need you to tell me where I was.
72,000, and I will point out that the Wall Street Journal
72,000
is not called the Main Street Journal, and they care more about Wall Street than Main
Sir,
Street.
I'm not asking you to opine on the Wall Street Journal. I have 3 minutes. Just answer the questions that I'm actually asking you. So 72,000 manufacturing jobs, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. Thank you for answering the question. Manufacturers shed workers in each of the 8 months after President Trump unveiled his tariffs on what he called Liberation Day. I would submit that it's a strange liberation and a curious freedom that leaves you unemployed. Even worse, smaller businesses are struggling to keep up with the tariff chaos. Big manufacturers may have the resources to shift suppliers. And I need you to understand the spirit of my questions. I spend a lot of time talking to the people in Georgia who've given me the great honor of representing them in the United States Senate. And so this is about them, and especially our small businesses. They don't have the ear of the president. They don't have access to Mar-a-Lago. And so they're not able to insulate their company from the worst of the tariff. Secretary Bessent, small businesses without the same resources or unfettered access to the president, what should those businesses do for the relief if they can't get into Mar-a-Lago?
Again, sir, small business confidence is up, and we are seeing that the one big beautiful bill gives the full expensing for equipment, factories, and ag structures.
They are telling us that it's more expensive to make basic things. We are moving in the wrong direction. The facts don't lie. The president lies often, but the facts don't lie. In fact, if you're saying we're at the beginning, basically your answer to those small businesses is wait a little while. Is that the answer? That a year from?
You ask about manufacturing.
That's right.
So
I'm asking you.
And I am saying.
I'm asking you about this manufacturing boom. Will we see something different a year from now?
We are going to see it. I was just in my home state, Senator Scott's state, South Carolina, that we are seeing a boom there. And I believe Georgia has very good pro-business policies. I'm sure you will see a boom there also. The factory build intentions are quite high.
I'll tell you what I see. I see, as I talk to folks, that it's more expensive to build things in America. I see that we've lost 72,000 jobs a year into this administration. We've lost manufacturing jobs every month since he called for Liberation Day. And meanwhile, folks who are working in these small businesses trying to make their lives work, they're seeing higher costs. They're seeing their costs go up for groceries. They're seeing their costs go up for electricity. They're seeing their costs go up for health care. And I think the American people are still waiting for a solution. So far, we haven't seen one coming out of this Trump tariffs regime. The Baptist preacher is done, and I have no time left. Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary.
Inflation.
Senator Ricketts.
Thank you very much, Chairman Scott and Ranking Member Warren, for this hearing, and Secretary Bessent, thanks very much for being here. Appreciate it.
It's good to see you, Senator.
Good seeing you. And I want to thank you and commend you for updating the 45Z clean fuel production credit. That is very important, so thank you very much for getting that out. Your guidance incorporates what we put in the Working Families Tax Cut. Remember, that's how we rebranded the One Big Beautiful Bill, and supports Nebraska farmers and biofuel producers. So that's really, really important. It also ensures that feedstocks from faraway countries will not be allowed to get that credit, which means American taxpayer dollars will stay here in America. That was very important. So Secretary Bessent, appreciate that. Also want to just comment on one of my colleagues from the other side of the aisle talking about the ag economy. I would note that under the Biden administration, we had 4 years in a row of agricultural trade deficits, because the Biden administration was the first administration, going back to Jimmy Carter, not to sign a major trade deal. And that is one of the reasons why we have such a hard problem, or a hard time right now in the ag. And in fact, when talking about input prices, under the Biden administration, June of 2022, diesel hit $5.75, now it's at $3.52. So again, we need to address the issues to help our farm economy out, but a lot of the seeds of this was started in the Biden administration. I also want to thank you for presenting FSOC's 2025 annual report. In that, one of the things that perhaps you already touched upon, and if I'm repeating myself, please forgive me, or repeating what's happened here, forgive me, but the Biden administration, under the Biden administration, then Secretary Yellen, actually undid all the good work of the Trump administration in 2019's FSOC when they changed the activity-based designation guidance. Yellen replaced it with her own guidance that was turning a last resort safeguard into a tool that could be weaponized and stifle innovation and restrict access to capital that would grow our economy. A little over 2 years ago, I sent a letter to then Secretary Yellen about how the 2023 entity-based designation guidance was misguided, lacked evidentiary support, and increased the likelihood of market distortions. Secretary Bessent, do you agree with the characterizations of the 2023 guidance that could do all these things, could cause market distortions?
I believe in the activity-based guidance, and we are moving back to that, Senator.
Great.
And Senator, if I could just point out that FSOC under Secretary Yellen, 2 weeks before the three of the largest bank failures in U.S. history, many of them due to bond market portfolios, identified climate as the biggest risk to financial stability. They had not over-leveraged bond portfolios.
Seems like misplaced priorities given a financial service sector. Secretary Yellen rolled out her new guidance, and then she stripped out the cost-benefit analysis of it. In your view, does cost-benefit analysis matter in evaluating to use FSOC's SIFI designation authority?
Again, sir, without that, why would you do it?
What is your view on the activity-based designation approach that was developed through the transparent and methodical process done in 2019?
We are readopting it, and we believe it is fulsome, robust, and smart-minded.
Great. Thank you very much, Secretary. Thanks to President Trump's leadership and your steady hand at the Department of Treasury, the United States economy is doing very well. I think the GDP growth in the last quarter, third quarter, was 4.4% annualized in 2025. Labor markets remain resilient. The unemployment rate is 1.2% below historical average. Inflation is down from the highs of the 40-year high Biden administration, decreasing some 70% from the peak in the Biden administration. American markets are strong. We saw the largest tax cut in history signed into law, allowing us to avoid a $4.2 trillion tax increase. We've got no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. 88% of seniors will not pay federal income tax. The average refund is supposed to be $1,000 higher this year, and the average Nebraska family will avoid a $2,400 tax increase. Yet, despite all this progress, we're seeing consumer confidence is not really rebounding the way that the economy seems to be. In your opinion, what more can we in the Senate be doing with regard to consumer confidence and making, obviously we had 40-year high inflation under the Biden administration, but what more can we be doing in the Senate to be able to help out with confidence of consumers?
Other than telling consumers to turn off MSNBC, because a large part of it is a survey problem where Democrats vote very low, Republicans are more realistic, and then we end up what we're seeing.
Senator Kim's time. I appreciate your comments. But
yeah, thank you.
And by the way, for all members, they're going to close the vote at 12:05. So.
Okay.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Started 10 minutes ago.
Thank you, Secretary, for coming on out here. Just the other week, you took part in talks with Russia. I guess I just wanted to ask you just your view of this. Do you agree that Russia's invasion of Ukraine was illegal and a violation of sovereignty and law?
Senator, I've been saying that since my confirmation.
That's right. Also, would you say that Vladimir Putin is a war criminal?
I've also been saying that since my confirmation.
Now, before you started, Treasury regularly targeted hundreds of actors and networks who sent critical goods to Russia's war machine with rounds of sanctions every 1 or 2 months. The previous administration added about 297 China-based entities and individuals to our sanctions list under the Russia sanctions program. I want to ask you, do you know how many you have added and designated as part of the Russia sanctions program since you came in as Treasury Secretary?
I do not, but I do know that President Trump sanctioned Rosneft and Lukoil, which was the major sanctions achievement, and dwarfs everything else, and has brought the Russians to the table for the talks that I was at last Saturday.
And you'll have bipartisan support for those sanctions, but I'll just say that there is also bipartisan support on doing everything we can to crack down on Russia's war machine, not just on the energy side. And so, as I said, the previous administration has added 297 China-based entities. This administration has added 0. That is the number 0. So I just urge you.
The previous administration was extremely weak on sanctions, and it was on record as saying that they did not want to increase energy sanctions because they were worried about the midterms, worried about the failed election of Vice President Harris, and in a display of cowardice.
I'm not asking you about that right now.
But on the way out the door, Jake Sullivan raised some of the energy sanctions. President Trump took the most bold action. So we have done more.
I'm asking you here, can you commit to this Congress that you will take action to sanction Russia's shadow fleet?
I will take it under consideration. We will see where the peace talks go.
I see how this administration has taken this maximalist approach, adding pressure when it comes to Iran's shadow fleet, talking about, cutting off Venezuela's ships. I think that there needs to be consistency here. And again, there is bipartisan support for this. I wanted to just switch gears. Would you agree that money laundering is a national security threat to this country?
Yes, sir.
Now, with Binance founder Zhao pleaded guilty to violating anti-money laundering laws and was sent to prison, Binance then injected billions of dollars into Trump's family business, World Liberty Financial, and Zhao asked for a pardon and received that. I just wanted to ask you, is that a conflict of interest in your opinion?
I am unfamiliar with any of that. I wear many hats. The pardon hat is not one of them.
I'm just asking, do you see it as a conflict of interest, though?
Again, I'm not going to respond to that.
When you had the Russia talks, was Jared Kushner a part of the Russia talks?
Yes.
What is his official role in the U.S. government right now?
I believe that he is a special envoy.
So you believe that he has an official position and that is not a unpaid volunteer position?
Sorry, I believe that it is not an official position, that he is designated as an interlocutor as we bring many people into the talk.
I just raise this because this is the problem that we're seeing right now when it comes to these conflicts of interest. We see the Trump family getting involved in different roles, even though they don't have official positions. We see Pakistan now announcing that they're going to use Trump's family's companies' crypto for cross-border transactions and trade. Does that not concern you?
Again, I'd be especially interested to hear if you have any information of why Mr. Kushner is conflicted in the Russia talks.
Look, what I'm saying is that if he wants to participate in that, he should go by the same financial disclosures and getting rid of conflicts of interest that every other senior government official, including yourself, have to go through. And look, I'm just saying that when we're seeing Trump pardoning Binance founder Zhao, when seeing instead investigating Jerome Powell, when we see that Trump is now suing the Treasury and the IRS for $10 billion, he even said, I am supposed to work out a settlement with myself. That's what Trump said. Do you think that that is a conflict of interest?
That is a Justice Department issue.
No, it is suing your department.
The Justice Department represents Treasury. I would suggest you contact Justice.
With that, I yield back.
Senator Kramer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here. And let me say, I'm sorry you're no longer a North Dakota farmer. You were a good one, and we were sorry to see you go. So I'm going to really shift gears here and talk about something that truly is bipartisan, and that is the adoption tax credit. And I know you wake up every morning thinking about it, but and I'm just going to ask you to look into it for me. But during last year's Working Families Tax Cut, the reconciliation package, we took a version, we altered the adoption tax credit a bit to include making it partially refundable up to $5,000. And previously, up until 2011, there was a refundability of part of the credit. The adoption
is to establish the goal of reducing the federal deficit to 3% of GDP. Now, you referenced in your opening statement, I noticed that it's already been reduced somewhat to 5.4%. And one of the ways we can grow out of a deficit, or we can get out of a deficit or reduce a deficit, is by growing out of it. But I'd like to work on both sides of the ledger with you a little bit, because you have said that we don't have a revenue problem, we have a spending problem, and I absolutely 100% agree. So maybe you could just speak for the remaining time, although I would love to translate productivity sometimes as a result of efficiency, which might be a little bit of a workforce challenge, but that's another whole longer story. But speak a little bit to that goal. Is 3% by 2030, which is what our resolution do, is that realistic?
So, Senator, my target is for something that begins with a 3 by the end of President Trump's term. As I said, for calendar 2024, we're at 7%, the highest when we weren't at war, not in a recession. We're at 5.4, and what friends from the other side of the aisle don't, the tale of woe and gloom, we have, over the past 3 quarters, we've averaged 4.1% GDP growth, and we had a fiscal contraction last year. They brought down the spending, which is one of the reasons our bond market did well, so we're at 5.4, and as we move that down, we will see the economy improve, and everyone could go to the Treasury website, or the X account, I'm old school, they can go to the X account, and they can see a study by MIT that shows that the budget deficit that was blown out in 21 and 22 created the great inflation of 22. So as we bring down government spending, it will bring down rates and bring down inflation.
And at the productivity growth levels we're at right now, I mean, who knows how quickly we can get out of it.
I think we're in an exciting time that could be like we saw in the 90s.
I agree with you. We're at the beginning of the boom. I yield back 2 seconds.
We'll take them. Thank you, sir. Senator Gallego.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Secretary Bessent, thank you again for being here today. We kind of touched on this earlier. In addition to being Treasury Secretary, you are serving as Acting Director of the IRS. So following up on Senator Kim's questioning, so you are fully aware that the President is suing your agency for $10 billion.
Yeah.
We would agree. Would you agree that $10 billion is a good sum of money?
Yes, sir.
Where would that be cut from? Let's say for some reason he actually wins that lawsuit. Where would that $10 billion come from?
Again, it would come from...
process-wise. I'm not asking like your opinion whether it's right or wrong.
It would come from Treasury.
It comes from Treasury, which comes from the general fund?
The Treasury general account.
So taxpayers?
Yes.
Thank you.
Part of the 440,000 taxpayers whose returns were leaked.
If the president, they're not suing, but if the president prevails in this lawsuit, he's going to be able to pocket that money. My question is the president, has anyone in the president's office talked to you about this lawsuit in any regard?
They have not, and the president has said he will donate the proceeds to charity. You may have missed that.
So no one at all has discussed this to you whatsoever?
No,
okay.
sir, and the president said he will.
Have you received, I didn't ask any more questions. Have you received any advice from Treasury's legal division about how to handle this potential conflict?
This is a Justice Department matter. They represent Treasury in it.
Have someone from the Department of Justice actually come and talk to you saying that this is their purview and you need to stay out of it, or who has discussed to you what is your role in this?
Our general counsel, who's sitting behind me, has told me that it is a Justice Department matter. The Justice Department defends Treasury in matters like this.
Okay, so it has been discussed with you. Do you have any final say at all in the process of this, or is the DOJ just going to instruct you to cut a check and or settle, and you have no independence to actually make a decision whether or not the president deserves $10 billion?
Again, that is a DOJ matter.
And so the DOJ will entirely make that decision whether or not the president should receive $10 billion. You have no say at all.
Correct.
So you would just have to write the check if you were told to write the check.
Correct.
And you would write the check willingly if you were told by a DOJ to the president.
I will follow the law, Senator.
Okay. I mean, I think for many of us, this is very simple, and I think if this had been happening in any other countries, it would look an absolute, like a total shakedown of the American taxpayer. Are you also aware that President Trump has filed claims seeking $230 million from the Justice Department for investigations conducted during his previous candidacy?
I'm unaware of the cumulative number.
Okay. So if the president wins or settles these claims, that money will come also from the Treasury Judgment Fund, which you do control. Have you recused yourself from any decisions about paying the president on these claims?
Again, I'll follow the law, and I'm not involved with any of this. It stems from justice.
So you, even though the Treasury Judgment Fund is called the Treasury Judgment Fund, you have no control over the Treasury Judgment Fund?
We act as paymaster.
So you will sign it then?
Sorry?
You will sign the check then? If you're a paymaster, you'd be the person's signature is to the Treasury Judgment Fund?
I would assume it would be a wire transfer.
Yes, I'm assuming we're not that old school.
Yep.
But that being said, so you have no say in this whatsoever. You will only basically follow what the DOJ says, but you're the person that actually is the final person that pushes send, essentially, on the wire transfer.
Yes.
And even if you feel or that it is unjust, the fact that this president is basically plundering U.S. taxpayer dollars, you will still hit that send button.
Even if I believe that 6103, the IRS tax code, was violated and 440,000 taxpayers were leaked.
So
back
to this other thing. So now, do you believe, though? I mean, do you understand why some of us see a problem with that? And let me ask just a very simple question: do you work for the President of the United States?
I work for the American people.
So can the president fire you?
Or he can.
He can fire you, correct?
Yes.
So isn't it a conflict of interest that you're going to be making these decisions and the president has full power over you?
I think you're confused, Senator. I am not part of the decision.
Well, you're certainly a person that send on the wire transfer, and I think that's why there's a lot of people that actually do not trust and do not trust the president's actually looking at his best interest.
I guess you're saying that
I'm controlling the time here.
Obeying the law.
I'm controlling that. You're not obeying the law. You're plundering U.S. taxpayer dollars. Plundering U.S. taxpayer dollars. Plundering taxpayer dollars. Plundering. Thank you. You'll back.
Senator McCormick is now recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary, welcome. In Pennsylvania, we're fortunate to have abundant energy resources, as you know, when you attended our summit, a skilled workforce, and world-class universities. The pro-growth policies of President Trump have enabled the Commonwealth to capitalize on this optimism and investor confidence, and it's attracted billions in investment and spurred growth. The working families' tax cuts are set to deliver more than $600 billion, a new relief to the middle class. And still, there's more to be done. Permitting reform, for example, would unlock billions, perhaps trillions of dollars that sits on the sideline right now. And so, Secretary Bessent, would you talk for a minute about permitting reform and how important those reforms are to unlock additional growth beyond the fantastic growth we've seen so far?
Well, as I've often said, Senator, the president's economic program is a three-legged stool: trade, tax, and dereg. And permanent reform is a very important part of the deregulatory agenda. And as we've seen, more supply also pushes down inflation and increases economic growth. I think it is the deregulatory agenda is the most unsung part of the president's agenda.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. And, you know, there's going to be a big push, I think, from the Senate. There's already been legislation in the House. And, Mr. Secretary, looking forward to your support for a permitting reform package, which I think could really stimulate further the president's agenda. Second question, the working families tax cuts also created Trump accounts, a new tool, creative, sort of really remarkable moment to support families and build wealth for the next generation. Could you talk just for a minute about the motivation for the program and what do you think this is going to be able to accomplish?
Senator, 38% of American households do not have any exposure to the U.S. equity market. So for the next 4 years, as a $1,000 seed investment is made to all newborns, it will bring them into the system and set them on a path. There can be contributions from family members, from employers, from philanthropies, from philanthropists, and we believe that over 20 states will do this. So it is going to, over time, allow all families to have a share of the great American innovation and growth economy.
You know, as is people I meet in Pennsylvania hear about this and understand what it means for their kids, their families. I mean, it's a really incredible step, and I hope it's something we can really formalize and make part of not just this great administration, but future ones.
Well, I think too, Senator, and thank you for your leadership on this, that I have been a longtime advocate of financial literacy, and I think that this will be a real-time experiment in financial literacy as the families, as the children are able to look at their accounts on their phone and be part of this growth. I think that it will become very real and engaging for them.
Yeah, I agree. Final question. As you know, that the trajectory of U.S. debt is unsustainable. Net interest payments alone account for 14% of total government spending, and higher debt levels combined with high interest rates put upward pressure on the cost to service our debt. Further, $10 trillion of government debt will mature over the next year and roll over, which is a third, a little less than a third, I guess, of debt outstanding. Can you discuss briefly the conditions in the U.S. Treasury market and the trends you're monitoring as we enter this period?
Senator, thus far the market has been very resilient. We've had some of our best auctions in a long time this year. We're seeing very good foreign demand. But as you said, the trajectory, we have to get it back under control. As I talked earlier, we need to get back to something with a 3 in front of it in terms of deficit to GDP. Reason I came out from behind my desk was I was worried that many people, especially as Vice President Harris was campaigning, wanted to go into a European-style social democracy, low growth, raise taxes, growth lower, more taxes, unsustainable debt. So that's why at FSOC, we are focused on growth as desirable, but also a lack of growth as a financial stability risk.
Good. I don't have time for a final question, but I will just say I want to compliment you and the administration, and OFAC in particular, for the maximum pressure campaign on Iran and what that means for supporting freedom in Iran. So thank you for that. Thank you, your team.
Thank you.
Senator Blunt, Rochester.
Thank you, Ranking Member Warren and Mr. Secretary, for your presentation of the 2025 annual report. Mr. Secretary, in your testimony, you talked about avoiding, quote, regulation by reflex and focusing on growth instead of reacting to every potential risk. You say FSOC is, quote, tuning out the white noise to concentrate on the issues that matter most. From my constituent calls and emails and conversations, I know for most families, they don't experience economic policy as white noise. They experience it through higher rent, higher medical bills, higher grocery prices, and just worrying that the next bill or price increase will push them over the edge. And it's why the Financial Stability Oversight Council's job is so important and why it can't wait until markets break. Its job is to spot problems early before families pay the price. Housing-related risks have been showing up for decades. On this committee, we've worked on the road to housing in a bipartisan way. And my first policy agenda, actually, as a senator, was focused on housing. So today, I want to understand what Treasury has actually done with these warnings. Secretary Bessent, in 2024, FSOC issued a report warning of weaknesses in non-bank mortgage servicers, companies that now handle most U.S. mortgages. Last year, on January 31st, 2025, GAO also warned that trouble at these firms could disrupt federally backed mortgage markets. So in light of these warnings by FSOC and GAO, what has Treasury done in response to address the risks in the housing market?
Well, that was the Yellen Treasury, and they said that everything was a risk. The Senator, that's why we are more focused, but we are very focused on the mortgage market through Fannie and Freddie and through the non-agency actors.
So is Treasury's position that this was overstated, this risk was overstated, or?
As I said in my statement, if everything is a risk, nothing is a risk.
But I'm specifically asking on the issue of housing.
Yes, I believe, and again, part of housing is being able to have tight spreads in the mortgage market, and we're at multi-year lows in the spreads versus treasuries, which tells me the mortgage market's very healthy, and we had the lowest mortgage rate in the past 3 years in January.
Okay, so the mortgage, you're saying it's healthy. I know foreclosures are up 21%, mortgage delinquencies are 4-year high, I know all of that, but separately, your 2025 annual report notes that FSOC created a household resilience working group to identify early warning signs of household financial stress. It's my understanding that this working group was just created in December. Has it met yet? And what is it expected to produce?
Again, it's exactly as it seems. It will be meeting monthly. It did not meet last month. And we want to look at the household balance sheets and understand, again, the question I got on consumer sentiment. Is it sentiment or is it reality? Where are the pressure points? Because we do want to help working Americans and spot problems early.
So do you know what what are the outcomes? What is it expected to produce? Or could you share that?
Well, as it hasn't started yet, Senator, I would look forward to sharing the work product with you as we move through the year.
I would hope there is a plan, because I know usually if you set up a group, there's a mission for the working group, there's a plan, a set of expectations. So look forward to hearing from you on that. If you were to, you mentioned in your testimony parallel prosperity, and you mentioned Main Street and Wall Street. If you were to rate how Wall Street is doing on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being it's doing well, and Main Street on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate them?
Well, I'm not going to speculate, but I will tell you the Wall Street Journal, not the Main Street Journal, criticized me for being a populist on my advocacy of Main Street. And look, Main Street got killed during the Biden administration. Wall Street did not. And
I only have 10 seconds.
We're trying to level
in my 10 seconds, I just want to say 2 things. Number one, this is now your watch. So I know there's been a lot of bringing up the Biden administration. This is now your watch a year later. And number 2, families are truly hurting in this very present moment. So I look forward to working with you and finding out about particularly housing, because it's one of the #1 issues in this country across the dais. Thank you, and I yield back.
Okay.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. And also, thank you for being so accessible. You look at your predecessor, almost invisible. You go out and you're on TV, you're on the media to make certain that the American people, and you're communicating with us on a regular basis. That's a refreshing change. I just have a question on your many TV appearances. I've noticed that you said that if the Democrats win, they'll do it again. Can you clarify what that means?
Yes, we saw a spending surge during the Biden administration, a blowout spending, and again, the deficit to GDP numbers blowing out, which according to MIT studies, the spending was responsible for the inflation surge. And at the same time, we saw mass unfettered immigration, 10, 15, 20 million illegal aliens coming into the country and depressing wages, taking low-end housing. And a study from Wharton showed that much of the low-end housing inflation, especially in rents, came from the 20 million new arrivals. The law of supply and demand that applies both for housing and for suppressing wages. So I would say, when I talk about that, there will be blowout spending, which will lead to inflation, and then the border will be reopened.
So clearly, this deportation effort, especially the self-deportations, is going to lead to lower housing prices, and we've already seen it, correct?
We have, and rental properties are ranked A through D, and D and C properties, we are seeing a substantial decrease. But what we're also seeing is because of the supply that is coming on, we're seeing a decrease in rents nationwide. As I said earlier, True Inflation, an agency that uses a basket of gathered real-time inflation measures, is now below 1%.
Yeah, and speaking of that, so let's talk about that real quick, because there's things that obviously federal policy impacts. And so an underlying cost to a lot of these key basket of goods is the price of gasoline. What's happened in the last 12 months?
Well, price of gasoline is down substantially nationwide, and we expect it to continue going down. Also, diesel, which is an input for farmers, for truckers. So energy feeds into everything, whether it is food cost, whether it is manufacturing, and again, more supply and being on the side of the energy industry has resulted in lower prices.
And the same thing can be said about the question you got at the beginning of this testimony about groceries. Eggs is an underlying ingredient in a lot of foods. What's happened to the price of eggs in the last 12 months?
Well, the price of eggs is down substantially. The president had to wear that for a few months, and then the price of eggs collapsed thanks to a lot of measures taken by Ag under his direction. But of course, we don't hear about egg prices anymore. I will say, in my hometown, Senator Scott's hometown, I've noticed that the egg surcharge has gone off the menu in the diner we both like.
Right. So that, but there's some things that the federal government can't control, and we had a conversation about electricity prices. What state would you surmise, I'm not trying to quiz you here, but what would you surmise, which state has the highest cost of kilowatt hour in the country?
California has the highest cost in everything, the highest taxes, the highest homelessness, but
believe it or not, Massachusetts wins this one at 31 cents per kilowatt hour. Ohio's at 17.
Well,
and so a lot of that, wouldn't you agree,
Senator,
Mr. Secretary, that a lot of that is state policies, the policies initiated by those states?
A huge amount of state policy, and whether it's Kathy Hochul, governor of New York, blocking pipeline, whether the decision in New York, the sitting next to the Marcellus Shale, will not allow gas in, and the pipelines to New England or down from Canada. New England has made the decision to deindustrialize. Even when I was a college student, Connecticut was a hotbed of small manufacturing.
Well, and again, let me just say from an Ohio perspective, we're happy to provide low-cost energy to New England. Would you be surprised to know that Massachusetts also has twice the core inflation as the national average?
I wouldn't, and seeing the statistics for how many people are leaving the state, I understand why.
So, in conclusion.
Bon, Madame, Monsieur, nous obligé de camper là, oui, parce que les a dépassé sur nous-mêmes. C'est là où nous allons devant tout, non? Nous pour aller devant tout de grâce là, pour aller chercher